we got cut off. We were,
That's okay. I think
why?
we kind of got to the, yeah, we
Yeah.
can ask Janet to continue here.
There was a really cool story that was happening.
Yeah.
Janet, please explain it to us.
We'll let
I
Janet
thought we had
take
like
the
a
wheel.
minute left, and then we got cut off.
Who had the powers to cut us off?
Was
Right
it
against
Sanjit?
them.
Was it
Was it
Sanjit?
Sanjay? There was probably Sanjay.
Shit, I was talking all this time. I was muted. Sorry, guys. Like that
Were you
my
doing the
bad.
whole power move?
Yeah. No. So I sent you guys.
Why-
I
yes.
broadcasted a message to all of you 2 minutes before.
Yeah, we saw it. We just
No, but
roasted it.
then
It's
another
right.
message came up and said you will automatically end in like a minute. I thought like we
Yeah, that was after I broadcasted the 2-minute message. It was actually about 3 minutes after I
Yeah.
broadcasted
Yeah,
the
I didn't
2-minute
get
message.
that message. I didn't get the message.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone gets it, Nishan. You should just pay
I didn't get
attention.
it. I don't know why. I
I'm
didn't get the
bullying you, bro.
Yeah, Nishan
Alright.
got bullied.
Nishan got bullied.
Nishan,
Even
amazing
inside,
people.
yeah, I bullied him.
message. Yeah, you bullied me as well.
Amazing.
So,
පාට එතකම්
Alright.
කැම්බාද
Oh, you
yeah,
can-
okay. Dimuthu.
Yes,
I'll give you-
Dimuthu.
Oh, Dimuthu.
සිංගල කියන්න
Oh, සිංහල.
ඉස්කෝල එක එක ළමෙක් ඔන්න අපේ තුමක අමල් කියලා අමල් කල් ළමයෙක් ස්කෝල්ට එන්නල්ලු දැන් දවස් 4-5 ඊට පස්සේ ඒ අමල්ගේ ටීචර්වරු එයාගේ යාළුවන්ගේ ඇයි අමල් ස්කෝලෙන් නැත්තේ කියලා ඊට පස්සේ කිව්වලු යාළුවෝ මේ අපි දැන් අමල් එක දවසක් මේ ගෙදරින් පැනලා ගිහිල්ලා මේ අපි යා නැති පාර මේ පෝස්ට් එකක් දැම්ම මේ ඉන්ටර්නෙට් එකට යාව හොයලා දෙන්න කියලා යා පින්තූරෙත් දාගෙන මේ දැන් අමල් ස්කෝලෙන්ඩ හදනකොට පාරය යාව අල්ලගෙන තට්ටකින් දානොකුව තෙරුණ
පාරේ
Got it.
අන්තිමට යන්න.
පාරයන අය යාව අල්ලගෙන කෙදට්ටකින් දානකුවලු අර
I
පොට
got it, yeah.
Because they did.
Right.
Sanjit,
So
do
they
you
put
want
up, yeah.
to? Good one.
So whenever he tries to get to school, people on the road see the posters that say he found, please like send him home, and then they pick him up and take him back
Pick him
home.
up and put him in.
Good one.
Uh,
All right. So shall we start with who's the group? Shall we start with?
Group 1, right? Group 1 was Chris.
I think
was
that
it?
was us.
Chris, no? Chris's group. Yeah.
So yes, okay. So kind of.
So we first came into discussion about the entire concept that we were trying to explore, and we sort of looked at a few examples that Punyaki brought and a few examples that came afterwards, and we sort of wanted to make ideas surrounding those, and saw that those were quite common, and that was quite what touches people up a bit more. So we mainly came up with 2 ideas. And the small idea was mainly this huge scenario that would happen. So it was a huge visual scenario where this girl walking down a path, as in walking down home, has a phone in her pocket and sees that a classmate is with a boy or is doing like some different action which could be of popularity. And then she decides to take her phone out, and right before she takes a picture, she takes a moment to think of the consequences that would happen. And it's like a quick, fast action moment of what could happen, of this person being deteriorated in school, this person cutting herself, this person, people talking behind her back, this person crying, that entire scenario being shown. And then she realizes that, she turns her phone off, puts it back in her pocket, and walks away like she did. So the second large idea that we came up with was mainly, we mainly explored it in a manner of symbolic representation, and drawing a sort of intro into it was that we saw it as, so for example, a girl opens a laptop and and she's on social media, and then if you zoom out, you're going to notice that she is like in this circle of color, and the circle, which is rather thick or thin, which I'll talk about a bit afterwards. And this person with like a negative color, in red or something, just randomly, forcefully gets into the circle. And we zoom back in, and it's this bully who starts to discuss with her, as in starts bullying her. And the moment we zoom out, we see that this circle sort of starts to deteriorate, it starts to crack up, it starts to thin, it gets more thin, and then again it just deteriorates. And later on, after some time, she starts to associate this problem with a few more people, which we'll take as circles, just like her, in positive colors. And then with their cooperation, they start to push this circle out. So this is in a zoomed out. They start to push this circle out of her entire inner circle. And with that, her circle her circle develops and gets more colorful, it gets more vibrant, it gets more thick. And we saw that this circle could represent this person's mentality, because that's what social media is necessarily all about. It's really affecting your mentality and how that develops. And the circle represents what that person's personality is like, whether it's vibrant and whether it's thin or thick. And we also built up on that entire circle representation, where we thought that we could show that it's like a protective bubble, and that as she associates people, it kind of gets stronger. And we wanted to represent her resilience throughout that as well, and how as you associate these problems with other people who are close to you, your resilience builds up a bit more. And because of that, the circle gets thicker, and we sort of came up with that symbolic representation. That's really what came into our perspectives.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Sajita.
Sajita.
That was
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Any
any
feedback
ideas?
from the group? Yeah, I also had some feedback. I'll hold it for till everyone responds. Everyone? Guys, we're gonna need feedback because actually, yeah, Dimuthu, thanks.
Can you translate it quick?
Yeah, better translate.
Yes, so පළවෙනි idea එක දිමුතු තිබ්බේ මේ ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක ළමෙක් මොකක් හරි බුලි කරන්න හරි පින්තූරයක් ගන්න වගේ යනවා. හැබැයි ඒ යන මොහොතේම එයා තප්පරයක් ගන්නවා හිතන්න. ඒ ගන්න මොහොතේ එයාට නිකන් almost fast forward වගේ මේ ගන්න එකෙන් එයා කරන එකෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන් scenarios ටික එකපාරට එක දිගට පේනවා. දැන් මේ ළමයාට මෙහෙම පින්තූරයක් ගත්තම එයාව බුලි වෙලා ඊට පස්සේ ළමයා self harm කරගෙන depress වෙලා ඒ level එකටම දැකලා ඊට පස්සේ ආපහු remind වෙලා එයා ඒ මොහොත ගත්ත මොහොතෙන් එයා එක ඒ පින්තූරේ ගන්න නැතුව හරි ඒ cyber bully නොකර ආපහු phone එක pocket එකට දාලා ගන්නවා නිකන් අර එයා making වෙන දේ ගැන මොහොතක් ගන්නවා හිතන්න. දෙවැනි එක ටිකක් visually represent කරන idea එකක්. ඒකේ තියෙන්නේ නිකන් අර ඒ කියන්නේ එක ළමයෙක් ඉන්නවා එයා නිකන් circle එකක් හැටියට අපි ගත්තොත් එයාගේ energy එක ඒ කියන්නේ එයා තනියෙන් එයාගේ වැඩක් කරගෙන ඉද්දි නෙගටිව් එනර්ජි එකක් තියෙන කෙනෙක් ඒ රවුම ඇතුළට එනවා. ඒතකොට ඒ රවුම ඇතුළෙන් එන එකෙන් එයා කොහොමද මෙයාගේ තියෙන වෙන සර්කල්ස් කියන්නේ එයාගේ යාළුවෝද ඒවා අඩු කරන්නේ වැඩි කරන්නේ. එතකොට මේ ඒ ළමයාම ඒක එයාට වෙන දෙයට එයා රියැක්ට් කරන විදිහෙන් දැන් ඔකිට කිව්වා resilience එයා හිතුවත් ඒකට effect වෙන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. එතකොට කොහොමද එයාගේ circle එක කියන්නේ ඒක ඊට වඩා ශක්තිමත් වෙනවා. එතකොට වෙන කාටවත් එන්න බැරි වෙන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ මේක ටිකක් අර අපි කතා කරපු ගොඩක් දේවල් visually represent වෙන idea එකක්. දෙවෙනි අදහස. Yeah. Any feedback, guys? Because also think of it as an audience. Now listen to these ideas as an audience. Just tell us what would you go for. That kind of feedback would help us. Everyone? Anyone?
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like the idea about the circles, unless like we come up with a solid way of like presenting it might be a bit difficult for every audience, like every kind of person to understand. But I feel like the first idea is pretty simple in that, like, it's just a basic fast forward situation where you exacerbate like the circumstances that arise due to that initial thing that you.
I would agree too.
I
Yeah.
would agree.
I mean, they're both really good ideas, but yeah,
I was
in
actually
terms of
thinking
audience,
circle idea is something we could even do later on. Like I feel like it's
yeah,
kind
it's
of
actually
weird,
like a
but
visually very, very interesting idea, like even to go with animation kind of thing.
yeah.
But I
But I
think
think
like when it said
for this is
general audience, first thing hits immediately. It's very, it hits, yeah.
පළවෙනි එකේදී මේ අපි සාක්කුව දාගෙන සතුටින් ගෙදර ගියා කියලා නැතුව තව චුට්ටක් ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියනවනේ. නිකන් ෆෝන් එක
කියන්නේ
හරි.
ඔව් අපිට ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක ඩෙවලොප් කරන්න පුළුවන්. බේසික් ප්‍රෙමිස් එක තමයි ඉදිරිය දැකලා ඊට පස්සේ මොකක්ද අපි කරන්නේ කියන එක.
මොහොතක් හිතලා ඒකින්
මොකක් හිතන එකෙන් මොකක්ද වෙන්නේ? ඔව්.
ඊට පස්සේ අපිට ඕනනම් එක්ක මෙසේජ් එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ මොන හරි එක තව ඩෙවලොප් කරන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒක තමයි core idea.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid idea, kids. Yeah. Shall we go to group 2 just because we have the time limitation?
Yeah, we're running out of time. So
Group 2
was asked. Kipni, will you share with everyone?
Yeah, sure. So in the beginning, like Shakyaki, she brought up the fact that like even your closest friends could be the ones who are hurting you online, and online you don't know who you're hurting and you don't know who's hurting you. So we came up with like 2 ideas. So the first idea is that so basically there's a group of 4 friends and they're sitting at a table and they're laughing and they're talking and they're getting along really well with each other, like really, really well. And their phones are in the middle of the table. And then you the shot like zooms in on the phones and then you sort of personify the phones, and the phones like simultaneously, like while these friends are getting along really well, the phones are like 3 of these phones are yelling and cursing and like just saying really horrible things to one of these phones. So I think through this we want to talk about like how one of the main factors of cyberbullying is how little you can feel when people gang up on you, and how helpless you can feel, and also how much power a phone can give you to say whatever you want. Like there's a certain amount of restraint that you have like as a person to say things face to face, but then you can literally say anything you want, like utterly horrible things online. So yeah, so basically it's a group of friends talking and chatting and having fun, and then their phones, 3 of their phones are yelling and cursing and shouting and saying really mean things to one of the phones. So that was the first idea. And the second idea, there's not much acting at all. It's just sort of an idea that revolves around basically editing. So it's a photo of a group of friends, and so you zoom in on one of the people, so he or she, and you can say that, say this person recently committed suicide. And then in this group, the people are like really happy and they're laughing. But then one by one, you look at each of the other people in the photo, and then next to each person, like individually, the comments that they've said that might have led up to this. This person said this and this and this on this person, on her post, or this person forwarded this image of her to another person and caused a whole scandal. This person sent her this really mean text once, like, yeah. So yeah, those are basically our 2 ideas.
Yeah, I think both
Just to add to the first one a little bit, I think also one of the main thrusts for it was also to show how also this idea that if you see yourself doing the bullying and how ugly it is, most people would think twice. Whereas like because there are like a small percentage of psychopaths in the world who will never reach, right? But the general population are not evil human beings. Right? They're just like not aware of the harm that they're doing, or not seeing themselves doing the harm. So we show them how ugly it can be, and then drop in the message at the end about think twice, and you could be a bully or something in this.
Yeah, I like that also. I feel like even in our group, like this idea of it could be the closest people, it could avalanche, and we need to rethink. That seems to be like a common theme also for us. So I think these are both pretty really good ideas. So let's hear back from everyone else on what they think. Which do you guys think would hit the audience more? What do you guys feel?
සයිව බුලයි වික්ටනුයි වික්ටම්යි දෙපැත්තක තියාගෙන එකනෙක ජීවිත කතාවක් කොටසක් ඉටස් ඊළඟ අනිත් එක්කෙනා ජීවිත කතාවෙන් චුට්ට අර සිදුවීමට දාලව එහෙම මොකක් හරි ගොඩ නගා ගන්න පුළුවන් නම්.
Yeah, I think that our idea was a bit like that, Dimuthu. No, I think we can, I feel like there's ways we can combine it. Yeah.
Combine.
Any other feedback too, guys? Like with the two ideas that were there, do you feel ways you can combine even your ideas, like Dimuthu said?
So yeah, on the topic of people not being able to like bully a person when you're faced with that person. Have you guys seen the video of those two dogs that are kept on either side of the gate, and then you close the gate and they start barking, and then you move the gate away and then they just stop?
Oh really? I haven't seen this.
Yeah. So like
it's a meme, right? It's quite a meme actually. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So,
Yes, so old theory.
Okay.
Under that we can maybe switch it around, make it seem like the bully and the person that he's bullying behind the gate, and then when he opens it he's like friends and things like that.
Yeah,
just to add into that.
Actually,
we used to have these things where people are like fake fights, so like they get angry and they're like and then like they don't actually want to fight.
That's true.
But they get friends to like pull them back, and so
yeah.
And then no one pulls you back, and you're like, oh gosh, no.
Yeah.
Kids.
Online does not want to pull you back.
Yeah, small kids. Yeah, exactly. So, is everyone okay staying another 15 minutes?
Just a few 15 minutes tops. Thanks, guys.
So let's kind of speed this up then.
No,
all right.
Thanks, Abdullah. I think that's also a way to think of combining. Okay, let's go to the next group. Is that us?
Yeah, that's
okay. Yeah.
So I'll give you like a brief outline because we couldn't summarize, but I think Janit can kind of tell the story better. So we talked about a lot of things, and most of it was like school setting. Again, like you guys said, like something that starts as maybe even harmless as from a friend, or even harmful, but like from someone who is in your own friend circle, and how this can avalanche. Like really avalanche. And then Shavi brought something interesting, which was in this Instagram thing called, Shavi isn't here, some Instagram group called Podihara, which is just like random photos of schoolgirls or schoolboys, and they don't even know that these photos are there, so they don't even know how to take action, and how this kind of other photos that other people share can even get into public forums like this, how the group grows bigger and it can avalanche. And then what we thought of was this two parallel storyline kind of thing, which I think Janit can kind of tell a little bit more about the idea, which we weren't fully able to finish. But Janit, do you want to go?
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Just need to check. Right. So what we were thinking in terms of timelines was one would be where the bullying does happen and the other one where it doesn't happen. So essentially our story would go in the direction of there would be a friend and there would be another friend. One friend has a picture of let's say me, and they come up to you and just as friends they're like, bro, I'm gonna put this on my story, and you're like, haha, because you don't really take it that seriously. But what I wanted to show was when that does happen, and let's say that person puts that picture on their story. So if you ever watched 1917 or Birdman, you would notice the camera doesn't have distinctive cuts. It would always be a solid movement, and that's very that can be done under low budget. It doesn't need that much work. So essentially, what I was planning was the friend shares that story, and then the camera would just move in that same direction to another person who's maybe walking the opposite direction with the phone, and also gets that message, and they're like talking to their own click. And what happens is once they are moving and they share it, you move the camera to another group of friends who are also got this picture, and they're like talking about what's happening. And yeah, so it creates this really cool I feel illusion of how fast it can move, rather than if you do distinctive cuts everywhere. Yeah, and I was thinking that, and in terms of timeline, what I was planning was they're going that, and what happens if it comes full circle, right? They're talking and they contact the friend whose face is in that picture, and it's all happening in like one area, and then it would all loop back to again me just talking to my friend, and my friend is asking me, bro, can I post this picture? And you would be like, no. And that's what I was thinking. But yeah, we just very one-made, very fast, maybe some very cool music playing in the background show like its impact in a much more entertaining way as well. So
that was one kind of idea, and there was one small other idea that Dimuthu put, which is again the avalanche effect and parallel storylines, but he was thinking in more terms of like, one is the consequence of that small thing, and it builds up, people gang on, and then this person is being bullied. Or also looking at it in a victim's perspective, where like, okay, this thing happens to this kid, and one route the kid takes is suicide or whatever, and then the other route, parallel storyline, can be where she decides she's not going to let it affect her or him, and then so it's this idea of parallel storylines, but there were kind of two ideas around it.
Right. So the way I see the two ideas that you have, one is putting basically what Chris talked about, putting the impact on the person. The other is talking more about the bully. And if we had to pick one, my feeling is we should go with putting the pressure on the bully. While as the personal resilience is an important thing, I think it's hard for us to convey that in 1 minute. The other thing is, I really like the visual of it and how to shoot it, and the whole one shot kind of idea. Like I instantly got what you were saying. I think what we could do is potentially even combine it with group one's idea about stopping to think, and then that whole thing stops and kind of so maybe we could add that element to it, rather than the person who is being bullying having the autonomy to decide whether the picture should be shared or not. It should be one of the individuals who is sharing who decides to break the chain. And this was something I was talking to the kids in our group as well, how how right now there's this big comic book and superhero culture, right? Like everyone's into superheroes, and kids wonder I wish I had a superpower and stuff like that. But it's these everyday moments like this that actually give you the chance to be heroic, right? Like standing up to bullying, deciding to break the chain of bullying. So we could end with a message like, be a hero, stop, that kind of message, be your own hero kind of thing.
Yeah, and actually that kind of thing is very difficult also.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing is actually far more far more difficult, especially in a group setting. Like once Kitty and I were actually talking about how, like you said, there's these groups, right? Fan clubs or whatever. And even in these, suddenly there's so much hate, and it's just so hard as an individual to even...
No. You don't want to be the lame person who stands up against the crowd,
it's
right?
The hardest part actually. So I think...
So that's that element we can talk about. Okay, so since we're running out of time, if there's
let's
nothing
go to
else,
the next group. Did we cover all the groups?
No, we didn't cover. Did we cover Sanjit's group?
No, Sanjit's group is...
Yeah. Dunit, you want to go?
Sure. If I miss anything,
sorry, I broke up there for a second. What did you say?
Okay, if I go first, then Sala could
yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So the first, like, all of these ideas are kind of based on what would the audience resonate the most with, especially with like people within our generation. Like, what do they go through in terms of cyberbullying? Like, two main ideas were first in terms of like a very simple example of how it's like so much embarrassing content getting posted on your birthday, as like stories or things like that. It's all centered around the fact that you give implied consent for people to kind of cyberbully because of like these societal norms that say it's okay, or that says it's like playful banter. So like play on firstly like the outside perspective, what you actually say to that, where you're like, cool, it's fine, I'm just being a good friend or whatever. And the internal perspective of where you don't like it, where you feel uncomfortable, where you feel like you want to talk up against it, but you can't. Kind of following on that is kind of, it's a different idea on how like, it's an ironic presentation of the difference between bullying, like physical, like person to person, and cyberbullying as something that happens through the internet, where you can be like, and it's shown in the perspective of a person who stands up against bullies, like let's say in a high school context, where they're like stopping fights or like confronting people, and they kind of like on their way back home, they just go on their phone and like start passing like these slurs or like dissing remarks to people. So you show that like they don't give the same concern that they give to like actual bullying that they would to cyberbullying that happens through social media, and like present that very ironic. There was this other small thing that I thought of. Didn't get like, we didn't put much development into it, but I kind of got the inspiration from a novel I read. It's called Turtles All the Way Down. Basically, it's about this character Hazza who has these things called invasives, that they're like spider thoughts that kind of provoke the way she acts and like feels about things, and she calls it the devil. And actually, like the novel speaks to her. So I thought maybe incorporate that idea to what would happen in the context of cyberbullying. That let's say you're in like a very normal context, like at a family dinner or something like that, like very playful conversation, things like that. And all of a sudden, when you open your phone, the kind of hateful comments that you get in terms of cyberbullying fuels that devil inside of you, that like, and like the visual representation is that devil inside of you saying things like, you're not enough, or you're ugly, or things like that, that really kind of take over and isolate you from like everything happening outside. Did I miss anything? Sala, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so on the note, we kind of came up with this small story about so basically there's this guy who's a bully physically, and so he thinks like he's like a big shot and all that, and he stands, and so then after that he like goes on to Facebook, and he gets like really like out of remark. And so basically the point here is like he's a bully and he pretends to be a nice guy online, but what he doesn't realize is that being a bully is like worse than being a nice guy. So like making the point of being that he thinks that being a nice guy is like just a cool thing, but he actually thinks that being a bully is way cooler than that. So what he tries to do is like he impersonates the other nice guys because he thinks it's funny and all that. So he's basically a nice guy online and a bully physically.
That's both like really, and again, like I think there's commonality in theme as well, which is
so the idea behind the concept behind that second one is just that the difficulty of people to like appreciate what that distinction is, right? So it's like so like he's known in school as like a stand-up guy who like stops like the little guy from being hammered by some other guy. right? But the same people who are like, oh, what a stand-up guy, also like and laugh at his like cutting remarks on posts, because that's just like, that's not really bullying, right? Like it's
and
like
it's also fitting in, no?
So
I also liked again the idea of like your internal kind of monologue versus your external, the whole birthday thing. I think again that touches to the whole personal resilience thing, which like I'm wondering whether we should do 2 videos for this one on that, and let's figure it out. But it's definitely an aspect we're talking about. I was also thinking that whole like angel devil thing is a very easy way we could talk about a person deciding whether they should be bully or not. You could have a little voice saying, say, drop this comment. Another voice kind of saying, and that entire like argument that we were talking about how, will this person be hurt and all that stuff, and that kind of internal monologue that should take place before a person types something. And we can very easily shrink 2 actors down next to the shoulders, like one of those like Looney Tune cartoons with like an angel and a demon, right?
That kind of came up in our discussion as well. Like that was pretty interesting.
That can combine with the Okitas group's idea of the whole even in terms of consequence, or even actually like I think one thing all of this had in common is also like the avalanche effect and the parallel thinking kind of thing, no?
Yeah, and also that taking a moment
and
to
and definitely the idea that it could be the closest like friends. I think that's also could be people who are your friends.
I feel like in terms of themes, that was the majority theme, and then there are the other 2 themes was the whole internal resilience thing, which 2 groups talked about. The other one, I think that only Sanjit's group talked about is like the difference between physical bullying and cyberbullying.
Yeah.
That was a minority idea. So if we can combine all these themes, so what we'll do is during the week, we'll try and identify these big themes and then put the ideas around each of those themes and see if we can like merge them all together or something like that. So I've written all of these down. And then guys, next weekend, on Sunday, like we did for the privacy thing, we'll sit down and come up with one idea that we can develop. It will most probably be a combination of this. I think this was, like, I thought the privacy session was great, but I think it's like, there's so many ideas now, right? Like, which is awesome.
And so many actually, like within the conversations also, they're like through your experience, there's the actual real like stories, stories you told about your friends, what happened, and like, there's so much we can really hit home with this kind of,
So this is really great, guys. So we'll talk to you all in a week or so. And before we wrap up, there's a few things we need to talk about in terms of like starting the work on the privacy script. Right. So I'll just quickly do that in like the last 5 minutes. So can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the working groups that all of you wanted to join. So how this is going to work is what we thought was we'll assign. Okay. So before we actually make the videos, I think all of us will be involved in kind of drafting the final idea. Right? But the people who will be mainly in charge of finalizing the scripts will be the writers and directors, right? But we want the performers also and the video production people to also join in on the conversation and talk about how you could act things out, how you could perform certain characters, what sort of like funny jokes or whatever.
Like Janit very intricately said about the camera work, so those kind of things.
Yes, exactly, right? So then the video production people can talk about like the kind of things they can edit and shoot and things like that, right? So what we thought was, since it's a lot of work for all of you to write all 4 scripts, what we'll do is we'll break the writers into each of the topics, right? So maybe 2 writers per topic, right? Who will be in charge of the script, which doesn't mean the others shouldn't get involved or anything like that, right? But it's just 2 people who have to do the writing, who have to collect all the ideas, who have to take responsibility and do it, right? So that team will mostly be the writers and directors. But then when we actually shoot it, we'll get that will be when the performers really get to put in their, their sort of get involved more deeply, right? And as well as the video production, right? So one thing we thought about is everyone who is interested in both shooting as well as editing, what Nishan and I will do is we'll try to help you learn how to do it. Like on the day of the shoot, for example, we can get the directors, all of us, and what we'll try our best to do is teach you all ways of actually how to like shoot videos, how to do sound very well, how to do lighting very well. And then even after that, for the editing of the final videos, we'll probably have a couple of workshops for the video production people to learn how to edit and then get you all involved in the editing process as well, right? But until that video production happens, which is probably going to happen in September, the most of the work will come from these writers and directors who will be having to like put the scripts together.
Again, you'll be guided by us, don't worry. And specifically with script writing, I will give you guys a few tools to think about and like in your writing, feedback. So we'll be working with you. So don't worry, don't stress at all. And we are dividing up just to make things easier. And yeah.
So right now, what I'll do after this call is I'll send you all the Discord link on WhatsApp. So if you can make Discord accounts, and then you can join the Discord using the link that I share with you. And actually, Nishan, if you can you share it with everyone? And then what we'll do is on Discord, we'll talk about who wants to take on the privacy thing, right? In terms of the writers and
lead. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, do you want to discuss that now? Who's willing to take on the privacy topic? We need 2 volunteers. By the way, you can be in multiple groups also, right?
Yeah, so don't worry about it. This is just you're taking lead in terms of just taking the lead on that and that particular, because if you feel like that is where you want to,
Yeah. So ideally what we would want is maybe 2 writers and 1 director, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? And we have 4 directors.
Some of the writers and directors are not here. So shall we actually move this discussion to Discord, Malin?
Sure.
I don't think it's
sure.
fair otherwise.
Yeah, sure. We'll move this to Discord, right? So once everyone gets a bit familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're writing a script, what about the characters? How should we take them?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, like it's based on the ideas that we talked about. So if it's a privacy thing, if everyone remembers the idea that we talked about, and then you have to together develop the characters. So what we'll do is maybe have a couple of meetings in between the week, talk or even over text, get the performers, get the writers involved, and actually start working on the characters, right?
And if you already have, and if you already have ideas, you can start kind of putting it, which is why this chat group is also good. You can start communicating it.
Yes, so we want all of you all to do it together, right? So I know most of you all don't know each other completely 100%, but hopefully by the end of this, we'll all be friends, right? So part of that is getting to know each other and doing this together, right? So we want all of you to maybe do it like even meet during the week, right? To do that, we will help you out, right? We'll maybe set up the first couple of meetings so all of you can kind of join. So we'll move this conversation to Discord. After we wrap up now, Nishan will send you the link. And then once everyone's on Discord, maybe we'll reach out to you tomorrow and we'll maybe set up a meeting with the writers and directors, and we'll start the script writing for privacy, right? And then this Sunday, we'll tell you about cyberbullying, what idea we're going with, and then start the process for cyberbullying, right? And just like that, but we'll have 2 people in charge of each other so that it doesn't get too stressful, where we have to juggle multiple ideas. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Is there anything else?
Last thing, I think. So next week we'll be talking about misinformation. So we have a little task which actually might be fun for you guys, which is to try and start collecting all the kinds of misinformation that you guys or your parents have got. So it can be WhatsApp groups, so we can start analyzing what the language looks like. So any chain messages you got on WhatsApp, your parents got, Facebook, Instagram. So start collecting any kind of misinformation, disinformation that you guys got.
And what we'll do is at the next workshop, so the next misinformation workshop will happen in 2 weeks, right? So in 2 weeks, we'll have the misinformation workshop. We have time. Next week, we'll be talking about cyberbullying, like what the idea is that we're going to go with, right? So for the misinformation, like you said, let's collect all these like crazy WhatsApps and stuff. And what we would want to do is actually, when we have the Zoom session, at the start, we'll want you guys to like just post it on the Zoom chat. So save the pictures, right? So that we can kind of have a good laugh about it. All right. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. This is really great.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Great ideas, guys. All right.
See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
See you all.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.